James did something like this for one about the tornado in Cincinnati
Oh, really?
and how we survived that
Oh,
when he was a senior, I think.
for like
One
a
of his
history class?
classes, yeah.
Okay.
Got an A on it, so I guess I talked okay.
Yeah. Okay. We can start just. Okay.
Do I need to say who I am?
I guess I could get in and introduce. So, my name's Miley, and this is my primary source interview, and this is my grandma, Sue Schroeder, my mom's mom. So that's how we are related. We can start with. Tell me what my mom was like when she was a kid.
When she was first born, she was real sick and was in and out of the hospital a lot. When she was born, she was 7.5 pounds, and when she was a year old, she only weighed 9 pounds, so she was very small. But then she was well. They figured out what was wrong with her, and then she was active in grade school, and she played soccer a lot and basketball and volleyball. So she was very active there.
What about when she was like a high schooler?
By the time she was in high school, we had moved from Chicago to Prosser, and she got involved at school, met new friends, and was very involved at school.
Did she?
She played soccer on the first girls' soccer team in Prosser.
Right. Yes. Would you say she was like had an attitude at all, or was she a pretty good?
Sometimes she had an attitude, but I'm sure she got that from her father, not from her. From her father, not her mother.
Mama.
Yeah.
Do you think you've raised your kids differently than your parents raised you?
Well, society was different. You know, when I was growing up, we lived in a farm community, and we were more homebodies then. Whereas when we raised our kids, they were more active in things. My parents never went to ball games and things with us because it wasn't available in the schools that we lived in. But when we moved here, all those things were more available to them. They drove cars earlier than what I did when I was growing up. And life was just different. Of course, we lived in Cincinnati, then we moved to Chicago. And then from Chicago, we moved out here to Prosser. So circumstances were different then. So yes, they were raised differently than me.
Do you remember clearly like the town you grew up in?
It was in Cincinnati, but it was a rural community that we grew up in, and it was farmland, not city life at all.
Not city life, no.
No city life. Not like, even Prosser, even as small as it is, there's more city life here than we had when I was growing up.
So what would you do for fun, like as a teenager?
Well, we had youth group at school and church, and we did things with that. If we wanted to go to a movie, we'd have to go on a Sunday afternoon, and our parents would have to drive us about 20 miles to get to the movie theater. There were different things available. Cincinnati had a great zoo, and so we would do a day, we'd go there. And they had different, Coney Island, they had that, and they had a big pool there and a big amusement park, so we always went there. Other than that, we just had our neighborhood kids that we hung around with. We'd go out in the woods, we'd go down to the creek and things like that, ride our bikes.
Yeah. What was your first car?
Our first car, I think, was a Corvair, which was a real small car that had the motor in the back. It was real small, but it was good enough for us to drive back and forth to school because school was so far away.
What color was the car?
Silver.
Silver. Can you talk about your school a little bit?
What school?
High school.
High school was an all-girls high school, private school. there was about 300 girls in my school. It was more of a, it was like a whole west side of the city of Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
Went into there several different church parishes. Went into this school. We had nuns that taught us. It was a pretty formal school, an old building, pretty formal.
What was it called again?
Mother of Mercy High School.
Mother Mercy. And then Papa went to Elder.
Elder High School,
Okay.
yeah.
One of the questions is, tell me about how you met Papa.
Papa.
Yeah.
We met on a blind date to the prom and when I was a junior in high school in 1966.
Yeah.
A friend of ours set us up. We went to the prom. And then we dated after that.
Yeah.
Got married 5 years later.
So were you
No,
graduating
3 years.
from college when you got married?
No,
No.
I didn't go to college.
Uh-huh.
I went to work. But Papa was a senior in college when we got married. And then he went on to graduate school.
Okay.
Got his master's.
Okay. And do you remember your wedding day clearly? Or
It
is
snowed.
It snowed.
It snowed. We got married in December.
Okay.
It snowed. And we had a big wedding. There was about 400 people.
We have a big family, so.
We have a big family, and he has a big family.
Yeah.
So it's a big wedding.
Uh-huh.
But, you know, we had a lot of our friends there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you remember what flavor your cake was?
It was, the top layer was chocolate, and the rest of it was white.
Any particular reason why, or
Just because
Just
it's
because,
different.
yeah.
And the cake top on top of our wedding cake
Uh-huh.
was the same cake topper as Grandma and Grandpa Schroeder had on theirs.
Really?
I don't know how many years ago it was before that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the same one they had on their cake.
Oh, that's special. Did you save it, or?
We saved it, and I think Papa's siblings used it on their cakes too.
Okay, got it. Let's see. We could get into some history ones.
Okay.
So, I know we kind of talked about it last night, but what do you remember about the day that Kennedy was killed?
I was in my 9th grade biology class at high school, and I can remember it was in the afternoon, and the teacher came in and was crying, and she had said that the president had been assassinated, and then it came on the loudspeaker, you know, the TV stations
Mm-hmm.
that were talking about it and reporting it came on our loudspeaker in school.
Really?
And they put it over the loudspeaker so that everybody could hear it, what was going on, and how the TV commentators were crying because it was such a tragic event, you know.
Did it feel weird, like, just like living in that country where like your president had been assassinated? Was there like a sense, like, I don't know.
It was a very sad thing. It was a very somber, very solemn event that happened, and that you know, everything revolved around that for the next week or so.
Mm-hmm.
Schools were called off until after the funeral.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And everything, you still see pictures that you remember seeing when it happened. And now you see this in pictures and magazines and books and things like that now. So, and we lived that.
Mm-hmm.
We were there when that happened.
Yeah. So, do you remember when America first landed on the moon?
Yes. I graduated from high school.
Okay.
And I can remember sitting in Papa's mom and dad's basement, and we were all sitting there watching it. It was a big deal watching that. The whole family was there, and we watched the whole thing, you know, about him being on the moon, and yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. I guess this one would be a little later on, but what did you think when you first heard about the Watergate scandal?
Um, it was later.
Uh huh.
At first, you didn't think it was true,
Yeah.
you know, that would happen. But then, when more information came out, you realized that hey, this really did happen.
Uh huh.
It was sad that that would happen in our government,
Yeah.
but you really realized it did happen.
Did you believe it at first, or like
Not
no?
at first, I
No.
didn't. But later on, like you say, when they published more articles and more
Mhm.
information about it, then you realized, yeah, it did happen.
Yeah. Do you remember when the day that Martin Luther King Jr. was killed?
Yes, I do. It was at my cousin Barb's apartment, and she had just gotten married. But the whole city, it was really kind of somber and very quiet, kind of an eerie quietness.
Uh huh.
Because not too far from where she lives was a very black community,
Oh, okay.
and you could just sense the unrest there. You know, you worried, and then they had the curfews. You know, you they didn't want you in any parts of the certain parts of the city at certain times of day, and after dark you stayed home.
Mhm.
You didn't go out to these places,
Mhm.
but it was a very somber thing
And this is in Cincinnati.
in Cincinnati.
Was there much like civil rights movements like in Cincinnati?
There was, and for many years after that,
Yeah.
there was a civil unrest. Um, I don't remember when it was. I'm sure it was in the 90s that happened down where my father had his Findlay Market
Uh-huh.
thing, and stores were broken into and robbed, and a lot of destruction, and that was even in the 90s.
Yeah.
No, it was, and it wasn't in all areas of the city, but it was in certain ones, that were predominantly black.
Yeah. So I guess speaking of like Findlay Market and stuff, can you talk about like what your parents did for jobs when you were a little girl?
When I was a little girl, my father was in at the University of Cincinnati. He got out of the service. He was in the Air Force, and then went to work, and then went to work and school part time after that. And then he worked at a dairy where they made ice cream. And then he owned his own business, owned a grocery store, and then another grocery store. And then he went to work for the city of Cincinnati at City Hall. He worked there in the real estate department. And then he owned a stand, Findlay Market,
Mm-hmm.
which he ran until he died. And then my grandmother took it over, and she ran it for many years. And I worked there too.
When did you work there?
From about 1965, for many years, off and on.
Uh-huh.
You know, he was sick for many years, and so if he got sick and couldn't go down, I would go down and help my mom. Even after I had children, you know, I would go down and help her as she needed it.
This one's kind of really vague or like broad, but can you describe like one of your best memories, either growing up or as like a early mom?
The best memories?
Maybe, yeah.
Let's see.
Could be anything.
Well, I would have to say being with families, like when I got married, and then we hit Papa's family. We both had really big families, and we'd have a lot of picnics and things. My mom and dad had a house that had a swimming pool, and so we spent a lot of time there in the summer. You know, the kids would take the kids up there during the week, and we always had a big picnic there. My dad always had lots of picnic things. You know, yeah, I would have to say it was family gatherings.
Okay. So then, like, now that you're had like our family, do you kind of see that, or does that like remind you, like when we gather and stuff, of when?
Family gatherings for me right now are very important.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it makes me feel good. It warms my heart to know that my children still get together.
Yeah.
That my children are friends with their siblings. That's always important because when I was growing up, and then later, with my sisters and brothers, and with Papa's siblings, we were always friends.
Mhm.
And to know that my children and grandchildren are friends with the rest of their family is very important to me.
Yes. Okay, and then to finish off, we can. What was better or worse about life in America when you were growing up compared to now?
Well, better, I would have to say, is the social aspects of families. Families, I think, were more important back then than they are now.
Mhm.
Families don't seem as close to a lot of people as they used to be.
Mhm.
Society is different. A lot of the problems that we have now, we didn't have back then. I'm trying to think of specifically what it would be, but you know, money money was not as important to all of us back then as it is to people now.
Right.
We had jobs, but I can remember my first job. I made $1 an hour.
Really? $1 an hour. What was your first job?
In a grocery store as a cashier.
$1 an hour. Wow.
Mm-hmm. But if I worked on Sunday, I got $1.25.
Oh. The extra quarter.
Extra quarter.
That's funny. Okay.
Yeah.
I can't. Let me see if there's anything that I. Is there anything you want to say?
I think that I'm proud that my children and grandchildren do more with their lives now than we did when we were growing up. College for my family was not as important as it was like Papa's family or like now. It's very important to us that our children our grandchildren are going to college, or that our children have gone to college and gotten degrees and are teachers and business people.
Yeah.
That's very important to us, to me now. Whereas I don't think it was as important then as it used to be, but it is now. I think people now are more aware of the social aspects of life. Like um, like racial issues, religious issues, political issues.
Yeah.
Those are all more predominant now than they were when we were growing up. Other than the Martin Luther King thing.
Yeah.
And the Kennedy issue. People are more aware of it now than they used to be, which is good. As long as they don't go to excess.
Right. It's probably because of like all the technology and stuff.
Yeah, very much so.
Media.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
I can't think of anything else.
That's okay. That's okay.
Got enough to get you through?
I think so. I think it'll be perfectly fine. Thank you. Yeah.
Does he give you the questions?
Well, there are questions to like that, like to help, but some of them I just like as the conversation went. But like some of the time specific questions like would be like kind of out of your time frame, like what it was like to live in World War II. You weren't alive, so yeah. And some of them are a little bit like when you were older. So like we said last night when the Challenger exploded. I don't even know if you remember that.
I don't remember a whole lot about it. What year was that? Does it say?
It just says the 80s. Whereas like my mom and Lisa and Frank all raised their hands.
They were in school.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're just like prompt questions, but yeah. It says potential question list. There is one that was like, tell me about a time you got in trouble. when you were young?
I never got in trouble. I was the angel.
Oh.
Let's see when I got in trouble. I think when I threw a plate at my sister.
Oh. Which one?
My older sister, Jane Ann.
Okay.
When I threw a plate at her.
What?
I don't know why I did it. We must have been fighting about something. We shared a bedroom too, so we were always in conflict. And I threw a plate at her. Didn't hurt her.
Was it glass?
Didn't break.
Oh.
Just threw it at her, and I don't know why I did that. It must have been something important to me that she did this, but
Grandma, feisty.
if that's the worst thing I ever did, I guess I'm okay.
Right. Yeah. What was your do you remember your consequence?
I remember my mom saying, "Wait till your father gets home. He's going to be really mad at you," and he was. But we never really got spankings back then,
Yeah. Did you give your kids spankings?
Yeah.
Yeah. Frank?
Frank was always in trouble. Frank spent his whole junior year in high school grounded because he was always doing something wrong.
Mm.
Things like skipping school and, not cutting the grass and that kind of stuff,
Yeah. He was a troublemaker?
He was always in trouble, yeah. That's why I think Preston is going to be his
You think
nemesis.
so?
Yeah.
Was Frank the worst out of the 6?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah. But he turned out okay, so this is all right, If it's all in the past, this is good.
Right.
Yeah.
It's character building. Yeah. Let me check what time. There's not a time limit, but okay. 20 minutes.
What was your time limit?
There wasn't one. But you just said however long.
Well, you can adjust it. You can edit it, can't you?
Yes.
Take out what's not good. And...
Yes, I can.
Okay, good.
Oh, this was good. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming by.
Yeah. Maybe
Okay.
I'll become an interviewer.
Maybe, you never know. I could see you on TV pretty soon,
On TV.